And so it is. Hey, everybody, this is the Mod 1 overview. Um, so just to get expectations accurate on this off the bat, this is not a lesson, and you should not be able to do anything different by the end of this. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to show you what the finish line looks like, so that as we're working on this over the next 2 weeks, we got an idea of where we want to go with this. So I wouldn't even recommend taking notes. There's tons of Mod 1 videos if you want to go back over all this stuff. It's basically the same talk every time. Just kind of watch, absorb. You can ask questions, but again, you should not be able to do anything new by the end of this. So I don't want to hear about it going too fast or something like that. Any other clarifying questions about what the purpose of this is? Cool. So let's take a look at our standards. So we've got basic programming proficiency in Ruby. We've got iterating over collections. So I'd say all of you are probably somewhere on the spectrum of working through these two right now. We're going to have a lesson this afternoon that goes over some of these iterating things too. Classes and objects and ERDs and SQL and persistence and relationships and active record. So not all of these are on the code challenge, but I would hope that you would be at mastery for all the standards on all of these by the end of project week, at least. Stuff that we're going to do this week, probably that, maybe just a teensy bit of this, maybe a teensy bit of this. Most of next week is really ERDs, relationships, persistence, sometimes a little bit of SQL, and then SQL and active record we tend to get in week 3. All right, let's talk about what all these goofy ass words kind of mean when they all get jammed together, and hopefully you get an idea of what you'll be able to do by the end of this mod. So let's say I've got some dogs, and I want to keep track of who owns those dogs. Meanwhile, I also want to be able to say all right, Kyle, who are your dogs? I go, oh, my dogs are Bixby and Mesa. And then I want Bixby to be able to go, hey, Bixby, who are your owners? I go, oh, it's Kyle and Elise. So we would say that each dog can have many owners, and each owner can have many dogs. So again, if I have a dog named Bixby, I have owner named Kyle and an owner named Elise. All right, well, Bixby is owned by these two people. Mesa, well, Mesa is just owned by Elise. And then Harmony is owned by just Kyle. And Gonzo is owned by Kyle and Elise. So this is the idea here. We need some way to represent in software how these things could be true, so that I can ask any dog who their owners are and get a list back, and ask any owner who their dogs are and get a list back. By the way, that thing that I just did, that is modeling relationships. ERDs, really. So our goal is to represent that in some code. So let's take a look at some code. All right, so I've got an empty folder here, nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve. I'm going to make a file called environment RB, and now I've got an empty folder with an empty file in it. And if I open up that environment RB file, then I can start writing some Ruby code. So I might say, all right, I'm going to require pry, and then I'm going to binding.pry. This is going to give me a chance to like stop code as it's running, and then like examine it and do stuff and see variables and that sort of thing. So even with just this much code, I can run this file and like see some stuff in action. So I might say Ruby environment RB, A, and there I am. I can say A equals 2 plus 4. I can do things with A. I can say A class. All the things that you've done so far with Ruby, I can do this in here now. But that's not really our program, right? So I want to go back into this file, and we need some way to represent these dogs and owners. So I might say something like, all right, well, I've got a class named dog, and I've got a class named owner, and I want to make a dog named Bixby and a dog named Mesa, and I want to make a owner named Kyle and an owner named Elise. So with just this little bit of code, check this out. If I run that file again, I go, hey, cool. What's Kyle? Well, Kyle's an owner. What's Bixby? Well, Bixby is a dog. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. So I have all that stuff hanging out in one file right now. It's pretty common in Ruby land to take all these different models we have for our application, put them in separate files. So I can make a dog.rb file and an owner, not RGB, and make an owner.rb file. And now I've got these 3 files in the folder. If I go over to the environment file, go over to the dog file, go over to the owner file, I should be able to take this dog thing, throw it there. Just be able to take this owner thing and put it here. And then I can use this environment file to bring those files in so everybody can kind of talk to each other a little bit. So I'll do that with require dog and require owner. All right, with that little change, all this should still work exactly the same. I should be able to Ruby environment RB and still see that Kyle's an owner and Bixby's a dog. Slick. I'm going to pause real quick and give you a tour of my text editor because you're going to look at it a little bit. This does not look like VS Code. This is a text editor called Vim. Vim is exactly like VS Code. It does the exact same kinds of things. It is super old. It goes back to the 1970s, and it is by far the fastest text editor around, like not even close. But it is cryptic to use. It's difficult to use. I would not recommend that, like in these 15 weeks in the program, you probably have better uses of your time than learning Vim. But if you see me doing something in Vim and you go, God, I just gotta have that in my life, there's always one or two people I can't talk out of giving Vim a shot. So if that ends up being you, let me know. I can get you started. But despite it like looking super old timey, it's not so very different. Up at the top where it says environment.rb, dog.rb, owner.rb, those are just like tabs in a text editor. I can go between them. The yellow one is the one that I'm on right now. Another thing that you'll see a lot is you'll see these tabs down at the bottom. Those are just different command lines. So like you can have, just like you can have different files open in a text editor, you can also have different terminals open. And so down at the bottom, that's just a list of different terminals. So it'll take some getting used to, but don't overthink it too much. It's just like the thing that you're doing. But I can type and talk while doing it a lot easier because I don't have to reach over for my mouse. All right, so let's get back in the game here. So I want to indicate that there's some relationship between owners and dogs. So a way that I might do this is say, all right, well, when I want to take an owner and I want to be able to add a dog to them. So I might say something like, all right, well, this has a method called add dog that takes in a dog. And then I need some way to be able to like keep track of the dogs that I've added. All right. So whenever I make a new owner, I want to initialize an empty array that's going to keep track of all my dogs. And then even though you've probably never done anything with classes, might not have done anything with class methods, any guesses how I might add a dog to this dogs array?
Just do an append to the @dogs?
Absolutely, but we even have like a shorter way than that. You got the right idea though. What's the other way we can add something to an array?
Push it.
Oop. Push is like what you would call it. That's like the method. Ruby has a very specific way. It's a Ruby only way of doing this.
Shovel? Is it the double arrow?
Oh, the double.
Double arrows. Anybody know the name for the double arrows?
Shovel, wasn't it?
Shovel.
Shovel. Very nice. So I say we shovel that in. We can say dogs, shovel, dog. But yeah, there's also like push. Push is like what you would call that kind of generically. I believe the append method in Ruby would work also. Shovel is what I want y'all to do. So, all right. Well, with just this, I'll bet I can.
No.
What?
The @ symbol isn't recognized by Ruby as anything other than a character.
No, the @ symbol is magical. It does something special.
Yeah.
So
okay.
If you have a programming background, this is the @ symbol is very much like this, kind of.
Okay.
But it's saying like I am storing this variable on an instance of an owner. And if none of those words made any sense to you, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about it.
No, they do. Thank you.
Cool. So, all right. So we have this add dog method. That should make it so that if I Ruby this environment file, should be able to say, all right, well, there's Kyle. Kyle doesn't have any dogs right now. But if I call Kyle's add dog method and put Bixby in there, all right. Well, can I add Mesa also? All right. Well, Kyle, what do you look like now? Now I got those two dogs. Ah, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere. Now, like I called this variable Kyle, I called the variable Mesa, but that's not really stored anywhere in the dog or owner that I made. So let's fix that. When I make a new owner, it's going to take in a name and it's going to store it. I kind of want to do that with dogs too. Whenever I make a new dog, I want to keep track of its name. All right, that's pretty good. And then I also, like the whole goal of this is I want to be able to like list my dogs. So what if I made a dogs method that just kind of returned that @dogs and just gave me that array? All right, all right. So what happens if I run this now? Oops, something I didn't like. Ah. So now it's mad at me because I have to like, I said that when you make a new dog or make a new owner, you have to give it a name. So I have to give it a name. We'll say that's Bixby, that's Mesa, that's Kyle. I'm using capital letters with these. All right. Cool. So if I do Kyle, add dog, Bixby. All right. I do Kyle, add dog, Mesa. Okay. And if I do Kyle.dogs, hey, there's my array of dogs. I'm starting to like this. And those are still like the entire like dog object, but what if I wanted to do something like just get an array of their names? I could do something like dog names, and then I could like use some of that like map kind of stuff that we're learning about right now. I could do something like, all right, dogs.map, and then maybe have it kick back dog.name. So if I do that and do my add dog, now I should be able to do Kyle.dognames. Probably helps if I make it so that you can actually see the dog's names. Okay, so I add Bixby, I add Mesa, and I say I want dog names. Hey, I get an array of strings. We know how to do things with arrays of strings. And this is how we're gonna like bridge some of these like modeling kinds of things that we're doing this week with some of this like nuts and bolts little programming stuff that we've done before. So by the end of the week, I would hope that like we're sort of in this ballpark. We can do some little stuff with classes and objects. We can apply some of this like procedural Ruby stuff like you did in Hashketball to working with these more complex types. If we can do that by the end of the week, I'd say we're in pretty good shape. So then what we do next week is, all right, I can get like my list of dogs, but right now, it's kind of hard for me to say, hey, Bixby, who are your owners? And get the same thing. For example, let's say over in dogs, I do the same kind of thing. I want to be able to like have an add owner that takes in an owner and shovels the owner into that array. Might even also do something like get owner names that'll map over those. And this is going to need a little name method too. So cool, this will work. And I'm tired of shoveling all that stuff around, so let's just say do this over here. Kyle, add dog, Bixby. I've got Bixby, I've got Mesa. Cool. So I run this file now. Hey, Kyle, who are your dogs? Awesome. Hey, Bixby, who are your owners? Oops, I have to tell it where it's going to get those. Hey, Bixby, who are your owners? Why, it's those. Kyle's dogs. Kyle has those 2 dogs. Bixby, who are your owners? No! What's the problem?
While we established who owned the dogs, we never told the dogs who owned them.
Exactly. We were keeping track of that in 2 different places. Any individual owner has a list of their dogs. Any individual dog has a list of their owners, but those 2 things aren't synchronized in any kind of way. Yeah, gross. So there's a solution to this. And this is the gnarliest thing that you will do in Mod 1. A little bit of a head trip. So instead of saying that dogs have many owners and owners have many dogs, what we'll say is a dog can have many dog owners, and an owner can have many dog owners. So we're actually going to make this 3rd virtual, made-up, abstract kind of thing in the middle. And it'll look like this. So I make a dog owner.rb file. So now at this point, I've got these 4 files in this folder. And make a dog owner class. And you're going to make a new instance of dog owner by passing in a dog and an owner. And we'll keep track of the dog that we were given. We'll keep track of the owner we were given. And we're going to keep track of every one of these that we make also with this add at all. And we can actually shovel those in too. So every time I make a new dog owner, I keep track of the dog and owner that this is supposed to be a part of. And then I shovel them into this all thing that's going to tell me every one of these I've ever made. And now, when I do something like add a dog, any guesses what I'm going to do differently?
Instead of shoveling the dog, you shovel the dog owner.
Hey, there we go. So I'm gonna, it's not shoveling into a dog owner. I'm gonna make a new instance of dog owner. So I can say something like dog owner dot new, and then give it this dog I was given, and then give it myself as the owner. Interesting. Now I'm not keeping track of my own dogs anymore. So what I want to do to get my dogs is I can get a list of every dog, and then anybody who's been playing around with those enumerables, can you guess what I might do to narrow my list of dogs down to just my dogs?
Reduce.
You're right there.
Reduce.
Ooh, not reduce. Reduce, you could technically do it with that. We got a better way to do it though.
Fine.
Fine will give me back one.
Select.
That's the one that gives you back more than one.
Select. Yeah.
Select. So select, I can select through this array and only get ones where I'm the owner. So I could say something like, all right, I'll select, and I only want ones where dog.owner is me. All right. So now, I wonder if this still works. I need to bring in my dog owner class over here. But otherwise, I think this is looking all right. Let's give it a shot. So I do this. Hey, Kyle, who are you? All right. Hey, Kyle, who are your dogs? Yep. That's right. I also need to, and this is like a thing you'll run into with Ruby a lot. I'm keeping track of this data here, but unless I tell Ruby that other things are allowed to access that, it doesn't work. So I need to do that and return that. All right, let's try that again. Hey, Kyle, who are your dogs? Boop. Also need to tell it that I can see who the owner and dog are. All right, let's try that again. Hey, Kyle, who are your dogs? There they are. Those are my 2 dogs. Those are my 2 dog owner records. So if I want to get only the dog from those dog owner records, there's another enumerable that'll do that. This one's a little trickier than the select one. Anybody guess what it is?
Slice?
Not quite. I have 2 dog owner records. I want to turn that into 2 dog records.
Dig?
What was it?
Dig?
Dig? Nope.
Filter?
So I don't think there is a filter in Ruby. Select is the equivalent of filter in Ruby. So what that'll do is it'll take, if we have a list of 20 things, it'll give us 20 or less things back. I always want the same number of records. So I have 2 dog owner records. I want to turn it into 2 dog records. That's a map. If I'm going same number, but they're different, that's what a map is for. If I'm going a lot and potentially fewer, but they're all exactly the same, like unchanged, that's a select. So I can go over to dogs. And if this is my dog owner records, I can do my dog owner records dot map, and then say my dog owner record, and have it return my dog owner record dot dog. All right, let's see it now. Yo, Kyle, who are your dogs? Just Bixby and Mesa, that's all. And then I could map through that and just get the names. I can do whatever. But now, here's the cool part of this. The problem we were trying to solve is that we were keeping track of dogs and owners in 2 different places, and we weren't really like synchronizing them. Gross. Now that we have this 3rd thing in the middle, we could just do the opposite of that over here for dogs, because dog owner is keeping track of all these like dog owner intersections. So dog can just ask for that. So rather than keeping track of that, rather than shoveling that into the array, I can say, oh, I want to make a dog owner, new dog owner record, that every time you add an owner, put me down as the dog for that. Now, instead of returning this, we could do something like dog owner dot all, and then same shit. I can select so that I'm only getting ones where I'm the dog. Say dog owner dot dog is me. And this will be my dog owner records. And then, just like I did in the other one, yeah, but I only want the owner's part of it. So I say my dog owner records dot owner. Oop, map. my dog owner record. And return my dog owner record dot owner. Cool. So I wonder if it works. All right, Kyle, who are your dogs? All right. Hey, Bixby, who are your owners? Oh, shit. And then let's say I want to add one. Hey, Kyle, you own Harmony now. Oop. Oh, did I make one? No, I don't think I did. Shoot. Or no, actually, Elise doesn't own anything right now. Let's get Elise in there. So I'll say, Elise, you own Bixby now. Okay. So Bixby, who are your owners? It's got both of us. Pretty cool, right? If I go Elise, or if I say Mesa, add owner, Elise. All right, cool. Hey, Elise, who are your dogs? Got both the dogs. Hey, Bixby, who are your owners? It's got both of them. So I can add it in one place, and it's kept track of in a place that both of those classes can look for. So some things that we've done. We did some iterating. We did some classes and objects. We've done some basic Ruby stuff. And we've defined these relationships. We're not keeping track of that. As soon as I kill the program, like this, I go, all right, cool. Hey, Elise, who are your dogs? Womp, womp. Everything goes away. So that's what we mean by persistence. If I want all of those things to still be there when I run the program again, I have to store that somewhere else. So we'll also talk about that in this mod. But the things that I just did, that's like 80% of the Mod 1 Code Challenge. So if you can do those things by the end of next week, I'd say you're in pretty good shape.
Is there a name for that middle class?
Yeah, say, oh shit, join table is what it is in the database. Ahmed, what do they call it in a model? What do the Ruby people call it in a model? Is Ahmed still in here? I don't think he is. You could just call it a join model, join class.
The in-between guy.
Yeah. Hit me with some more questions.
So once we're done with this, like, is there any platform where we can go ahead and access the example that you just wrote?
No. Well, like I haven't. I'm not going to upload this code or anything. But if you want to watch the video and type it all out yourself, you're welcome to.
Okay.
What else?
So I was saying when you were like, I guess when you're getting the class data is returning like that code and then the name. Yeah, so it's like back in the, I guess the actual results, like when you're
Back in the terminal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's like dog, and then it gives you like this ID number. Is that because it's a class? Like it?
it's because it's an object.
Okay.
So an object is like a super variable. It has like a lot of values that can go along with it. It also has a lot of methods that go along with it. And so what we see when we go like, hey, who's Elise? That like long string of numbers and letters, that's the memory address on your computer where it's like starting to keep track of all of those different things. And that's giving us some hints about what else is on it.
Were you asking it to return the object or the?
Yeah, if I just type Elise and I don't put anything else, I'm not taking any operation, I'm not assigning it, I'm not doing anything else. It goes, oh, I assume you just want to see what's in this variable right now.
Okay.
And I'm currently storing an owner, storing an object. Its class was owner, It currently has a name property set on it, and its name property is equal to a lease right now. And this is the address in your computer of like where I'm storing all this.
Gotcha.
But since you haven't like attached a dog to her yet, is there just nothing in the memory about the fact that dogs could be attached to her?
No, because owners aren't keeping track of their own dogs anymore.
Oh, right, because that's in that third class.
It
Okay.
gets it from the other class. That's the hardest thing that you'll do in Mod 1 is like wrap your brain around that. More questions about what the finish line should look like for this mod.
So in your environment.rb file,
Mhm.
whenever you want to access another class or file, do you have to put require on it?
Yep. So environment RB is the file that I'm running on my command line. The reason it can talk to all these other files is because they were required in. It's almost like I copy and pasted them directly in here.
But it's not required to put file endings on those.
Correct. Because the only thing you can require in is a Ruby file, so it assumes that that's what the extension is.
And those files don't have to be, right next to it in order to bring them in, right?
Totally.
Okay.
So I could do, for example, Mictor models, and then I can move all of those into the models folder. All right, so now this folder looks like this. Easy. So now I just require them from here. And all of that should still work. Hey, Kyle, who are your dogs? Goddamn right.
So you're just using the end of the path.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, like it's not the end of the path necessarily. Like, check this out. I could call models, I call this dog one. I can call that models.fart.rb. Models. Come on, man. And then change that. And all this still works exactly the same. Oh, who are your dogs? There they are. It's just the name of the file. The thing it's really looking for with like the dog part of it is the fact that I named the class dog.
Okay.
Other questions?
Instead of like in your file requiring dog owner,
Mhm.
and owner, like in that models, can you just require models and then it takes everything from there? Or do you have to specify each individual file?
So that's a great question. There's a way to require the entire folder, but I wouldn't sweat that too much because in mod 2, we're going to start doing a thing where you actually don't do these at all. You tell it where it should look for files. And if you have a file that's named the same as the class, it'll just require it in automatically. So don't get too hung up on like the different ways you can require, and you can just do everything by hand for now. Nothing you'll do in the next 3 weeks is like too crazy as far as like number of files or anything goes.
Would that be like building a path controller, something like that?
What do you mean?
Like you use that controller from like frameworks and stuff like that to say, okay, when you're looking for this, it's always here. Is that like what the controller is for?
No, the controller is totally different. This is a really common thing in object-oriented languages. Java, PHP, they all have them. I think most languages call them resolvers or auto resolvers. But yeah, controllers are something else. Cool. Other questions about what we're doing in Mod 1?
What's a sequel look like?
Sure.
What's
So
what's that? What is it? I don't know.
So I mentioned that any changes we make to our application don't really get saved anywhere. So when we kill the application, start it again, you don't have any of the stuff that you did before. So databases are a tool for keeping track of who people's dogs are, who people's owners are, which dogs have which owners, that kind of stuff. So the way that we interact with a database is through a tool called SQL. It's like a programming language, but it's a little bit different than that. So if I make a SQLite database called Pet Shop, then I can say something like create table dogs, and I always forget the create table syntax. Why not? Perfect. So I can say it should have a thing called ID that's an integer, and it should have a name that's text. And cool, done. Now I can insert into dogs values dogs Bixby. Cool. And now let's see, I'll add Mesa and Harmony in there also. And now I can say, hey, can you give me everything that you have on dogs? Hey, there they are. Can you give me just the names from dogs? Hey, there they are. And coolest part, so I get out of that DG. Come on, Kyle, typing like crap today. If I go back in there and I say, hey, who are all the dogs? They're all still there. So I've persisted them. The way that I made those tables, the way that I inserted the dogs, the way that I looked them up, that's all SQL. And so like it's handy to be able to do SQL stuff for exactly what I just did. Like hop into a database, see what's there, poke around a little bit. And you'll do like a couple labs, a little bit of stuff about how you write SQL in Ruby. But the reality is that like you're not actually going to do all that much like writing raw SQL in your code. We're going to use some tools to work around that. That's what Active Record is.
That DB browser for SQLite thing that's recommended in the optional setup materials, is that worthwhile?
I wouldn't. The stuff that we're doing is easy enough, and it's good practice to just write the SQL commands that I would just drop into a SQL database and do it from there. Good question. What else? So lots and lots to do. If we just like kind of focus on these first two, basic programming with Ruby and making sure we're real solid on like map, find, select, reduce. We're real good with that stuff over the next couple days. I'd say you're in good shape. We'll probably start scratching at objects tomorrow a little bit, probably a little bit more on Thursday. And then if we're going into the weekend with a little bit of experience on how to make at least one side of those object relationships, I'd say this was a successful week. So if there are no further questions, I will release you for lunch. Check your schedule for the next thing you got going on. But keep in mind, all this stuff is optional. I'd recommend going to the enumerables one. I think we're doing 2 of them today. They're the same lesson. If you want to just go to the lesson twice, if you prefer the earlier one, if you prefer the later one, if you don't want either of them, you just want to watch videos, like your agency starts today. You have a lot of control over your learning. So have a good lunch, and I'll see you later today. Cheers.